Hello, everybody. This is Miha Ella with Art of Experiencing. It's been such a long time since I was able to do another episode, a new one. I'm sorry for the leave of absence. I've been doing a lot of teaching over the summer. It's been really quite beautiful. A group of students, a pre-college program where I teach for 2 weeks. Then I had an acting class. Then I went to Greece for a festival of theater where I did a workshop. It's just been really, really wonderful. So I've decided today to try to do something that I haven't done before, or maybe I have done it many episodes prior to doing the Duchess and the Duke of Sussex. I was really, really very taken aback, actually, and surprised by watching the testimony in a true crime case of Ashley Benefeld, who was just found guilty. She shot and killed her husband, Doug Benefeld. May God rest his soul in peace. What she and her defense attorney were saying, their defense was she had no other choice. She was strapped by him in the house, the same house, which was her house, that she, Ashley, has invited him to come to help her pack and move from a location to a different location. Him all the time thinking that he was going to move with her using the same U-Haul truck. She is portraying herself to be a victim. My heart goes out to everybody who's a domestic violence victim for the courage that it takes to speak out against it, to be able to get away from the abuser. But I never believed Ashley Benefeld, the defendant. After watching her testify, I knew from an acting perspective why she was not credible as a witness. This is going to be the testimony in cross by the prosecution, where she is being asked to reenact the event, the horrific event, where she says that she had to defend herself, that she had no choice to leave the house. She was trapped in a room where she had a gun and she had to get away. The way that she had to get away was by eliminating her husband. I was making comments during the trial on different channels. I was watching Court TV, Law and Crime, The Lawyer You Know. He was very much on the side of the defendant, Ashley Benefeld. The whole time I was watching him and I was saying, please don't be so naive to believe what she is saying because it doesn't make sense. I'm watching it from an acting perspective because acting provides us with the tools to understand credible or not credible human behavior. I knew from her testimony that she was lying. And he was saying something like, well, how do you know? Not directly to me, but he was making comments and responding to other followers on his channel, The Lawyer You Know. And he was saying, how can somebody say that she's not to be believed if you have not seen other videos? How do you know her conduct? How do you know her behavior? I was really surprised because I know a lot of trial lawyers, like he is, do take acting. They use acting coaches to learn how that works. You don't have to see someone's behavior ahead of time in their personal life before you see behavior for the first time on stand. In this case, Ashley Benefeld testified. You have so many tools that provide us with that knowledge to be able to look, observe, no body language, no facial expressions, no words that she's using, and not believe them. Make the decision of why you don't believe them. There were so many signs that she was not to be believed, and I was a little bit shocked that he did not know as a trial lawyer. I love his channel. I have nothing against him. I am a fan of his knowledge as a lawyer. When I made my comments saying that I did not believe a word she was saying, majority of the comments on his channel were saying completely the opposite. They said, yes, I relate to her. How dare do I say that she's not to be believed? I am unhinged. They call me all sorts of things. The jurors came back with a verdict and she was found guilty I don't know what you have to say to that now, but I knew it all along that she was not going to be believed. When I watch somebody do a performance, I feel if they are speaking the truth or I feel if they are faking the performance. We have these brain's neurons in our head that particular tool to be able to watch someone behave a certain way, mirror what they are doing, having the same understanding of what they are going through, even though we are just the audience members. If they ignite, it means that they're telling the truth. We are feeling what she's saying. If they don't ignite, it means that something is not happening in a truthful way. So you don't have to know anybody's behavior before to be able to then say, yes, now I know to believe her because I've seen her behave in other circumstances. This is her way of behavior. You don't need to have that. We are going to go through the cross examination by the prosecutor. She was brilliant in the way that she stood for justice for Mr. Doug Benefeld. I will tell you details as we go through this to why she's not believable. These are, of course, only my opinions. Please go and do your own research about anything that I'm saying. I'm only an acting coach, acting teacher, and these are my opinions coming from that perspective. Here we go.
Sometimes he'd be a little rough, you know?
But other than that, he never was physically violent.
He didn't like punch holes in the walls or anything like that, no?
So when I asked you if has he been violent, you said, well, he didn't punch holes in the walls. Is that what you just said?
That's what I just said, yes, ma'am.
So punching a hole in a wall to you is a definition. When I asked, was he violent? Your definition of that is punching a hole in a wall.
I think that is violent.
Okay.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
There were so many signs to me that she is not telling the truth. The first one is she is portraying herself. I know she has to be close to the microphone. She was instructed by the judge to do so. But the way that she has her shoulders down, portraying herself as a scared little person, she could have stood up like this in the chair. She could have been sitting still close to the microphone, but had her shoulders back as a normal person would, who is really, really honest about what they're saying. They don't have to show us, they don't have to show to the jurors or the audience, in my case, because I'm coming to you from an acting perspective, that I am a victim. I'm going to portray myself, going to fool you by allowing my position in the chair to be one of a woman who is scared and small and weak. My voice is going to go to the same level. I was not strong enough to be able to protect myself. The only thing that I could do was there was no other way that I could have defended myself. The sniffing or the sniffling, I don't even know what it's called. Trying to make herself go to an emotion, push for an emotion. There's no crying. There will be, you will see fake crying. Another misunderstanding by people is that if somebody is able to concretely make tears, real tears come down their cheeks, they are telling the truth. They are not telling the truth. Real tears can be fake tears. What makes them real is they must come from an origin within herself, in this case, where she is telling the truth. That's when we, as the audience, going back to the mirror neurons, can feel that she is genuine, she is honest. That's when we feel them. Have you, in your life, seen movies or watched characters, actors portraying characters, and you watched them really crying? Some of them we believe, and others, no matter they have real tears, we don't believe. It's for that same reason. They're not coming from an honest place. They are manipulated tears. You make yourself cry, but there's no sustained, real, honest place of origin where they are coming from. They are lying about what they're saying. They are able to produce the real tears, but because they come from a lying place within yourself, nobody will feel them watching. That's exactly what happens with her. Another thing, she wants to portray herself as this very polite human being who could not have done any wrong under this man's control, by the way, she did not live with for 3 years before she did what she did to him. Every time the prosecutor is stopping to come up with a new question to ask, she calls her, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That she thinks will show us that she is a very polite human being, and a polite human being could not do anything wrong. Therefore, her defense is that she had no choice but to do what she did. She did not want to go there. She was so weak. She was polite. She didn't know what else to do but to him. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I want to get to the day that all of this happened. This happened on a Sunday, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're moving on, or you have a hearing on Wednesday,
I believe that's correct.
and you're moving right after that.
I think the actual day of move was kind of in flux. It seemed like it changed 1,000 times.
You're all getting in the car together, not together, but you're driving cars together to go to Maryland.
I believe he was going to be driving the U-Haul and pulling his truck. And I think that my mom was driving her car and I was driving mine.
And you were telling him during that time that you were going to move to Maryland and attempt to reconcile.
No, ma'am.
You weren't telling him that.
No, not in those words. No.
Did you hear Dr. Broder testify about that? That he said that when you were with Doug.
Objection, you're sustained.
So you're denying that you ever told Doug that you were wanting to reconcile with him.
I said I wanted to find a way that we could do things together as a family for Emerson's sake, and that's why we started doing things differently. He wanted to move back in, together. And I told him that I didn't want to do that. I didn't feel comfortable with that.
Did you say that in Dr. Broder's office? In front of Doug?
No, not in front of him.
So when you're with a safe person, a psychologist, you're not telling Doug this.
I'm sorry.
You're saying that you told Doug when it was just the two of you that you didn't want to move in together. And you felt safe telling him, I don't want to move in with you, right?
Yes, we had that conversation many times. Yes.
But you're in front of this psychologist who one would think is a safe environment with Doug sitting next to you. You hear Doug say to Dr. Broder, we are going to Maryland and we are going to try and reconcile. And you don't feel safe enough, Dr. Broder, no, that's not what I want to do.
I would want to make him look bad in front of somebody else.
Okay.
I wasn't going to disagree.
This is where it's going to start, getting herself to that preparation before she wanted to go into, I'm going to cry now. The prosecutor's case is that she was manipulating Doug all along for so many years because all she wanted was to have a child, which they had the daughter together. He even went so far as to reverse his vasectomy, I believe it's called, to be able to give her a child. After she got pregnant with the child, she moved out of their home. She wanted nothing to do with him. Never told him that she even gave birth for like 6 months or so. And she was trying to get full custody. If she was a victim, the times that she was pretending and manipulating and saying to Doug that she wants to reconcile, she wants to go back together with her family, she wants to create this new way of living together to be able to both bring their child together, was only because the courts were not in her favor, coming up with all these negative things about him, to say that he was even abusive of the daughter. She was pre-planning all of it for many, many years before the incident happened. If you were so afraid of Doug, when you were seeing a psychologist with you and Doug together, you were afraid to tell him that you did not want him to move in with you together in front of the psychologist, where it would have been safe to do so, but you had the courage, even though you were so afraid of Doug, who you say physically was a trained fighter, a trained which you'll see she goes to explain later. You were not afraid to say that to him in front of him without anybody being around, but you were afraid to say it in front of him and the psychologist. All Doug knew was that she was going to do everything in her power to reconcile, to try to raise their child together. She did not want them to live in the same house, but they were planning to move to a new location, to another state, and they were going to try to make it work with both of them living separately, going to try to work on their family. Was able to say that to Doug, afraid to say it when the psychologist was there. Fears that this is something that the jurors will not believe. She actually feels that because the prosecutor is so brilliant in the way that she's directly asking the questions and she's not backing up. What does Ashley do? She goes to the next manipulative tactic, which is trying to make myself cry, even though there's no real tears happening. You can see there are no real tears, but I'm going to change my expression in my face and go to artificial ways of behaving, allow my breathing to be coming from a place that makes you feel like I'm going to cry. Hopefully the tears will happen. She goes to that tactic. She knows that she's not being believed. Somewhere in her subconscious, she knows she's not being believed. Logically, it doesn't make any sense what she's saying.
With him in front of anybody.
Okay, so the plan was to load up the truck, get everything done, and then move very shortly after the court hearing, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you had no intention of dropping that injunction, so you knew on the day of that hearing, he was gonna know, right?
I'm sorry.
You knew that Doug was gonna know that you had no intention of reconciling with him.
We had had the conversation many times. I think he understood where I was at.
Okay. You saw the text messages between you and him, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree that those text messages do not indicate that?
It doesn't say we're getting back together, moving in together.
It doesn't say we're not gonna reconcile.
I mean, not specifically. No, I wasn't going to argue with him.
Rather than just answering the questions from the prosecutor, she adds on, definitely, I wasn't going to reconcile with him. I'm going to keep my voice at that low, kind of weak register because I want everybody to believe me with my fake act. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? This is not the way that somebody who has gone through all the horrific things that she's supposedly saying that she went through. If a person is going through a horrible, difficult domestic violence, period, there are so many again, and I'm not talking about that here. I'm talking about believing her or not believing her in her cross-examination by the prosecutor. Those real domestic violence victims have different emotions. They have different reactions to different questions. You don't stay with the same emotion as a human being. We are conditioned to be triggered by the different questions in a different way. No matter what the questions of the prosecutor are, she reacts the same. She has come on the stand to testify, having an idea in her mind of how to portray herself. General behavior is fake behavior. We do not act generally in circumstances. There are emotions that sometimes are louder than other emotions. There are emotions that happen due to a very specific question that trigger some other event from your life. If those events really happen to you. Now she can talk. She's in a safe environment. He's no longer on this earth. So she got what she wanted. Why is she so afraid now? There is her defense attorney that's standing right there in the court. There are jurors. They know to the prosecutor, that's not right what you're saying. I am what I'm telling you that I am. I went through everything that I'm telling you I went through. So believe me, I am saying it with all the confidence in the world. I'm not going to say it like this the whole time. And I'm not going to move in the chair and I'm going to keep my shoulders down, apologizing for everything as if to say, I couldn't do anything else but what I did. I had no other choice. We don't react like that. So you don't have to know somebody's behavior before to know that this behavior is fake. My mirror neurons watching her are telling me she's not behaving normally. We are conditioned as human beings to recognize people's actions, inner actions, outer actions, react to them, know if they're false, and know if they are true.
If you got your injunction on that day, September 30th, how would you have moved together?
This was such a brilliant question on the part of the prosecutor. If she says that everything that she is saying is true, trying to reconcile with Doug, she would have had a plan. She did not have a plan. She was caught in a very surprising moment, forgot about posing as a victim. And for a moment, she forgot about trying to cry. Nothing on the face anymore of I'm being small, I'm being afraid. She already was very interested to see what the judge was going to do. Was the judge going to allow this question to be asked? Her defense attorney was objecting to it. If she is truthful in her story of saying that she had in plan to try to work on her relationship, try to come together as a family, she would have had a plan. But she did not have a plan because when she asked Doug to come to her house to help her move, we have texts between the two of them where she was being very nice to him. There was no mention of being scared, being afraid, none of that. They were going to use the same truck to move all the furniture together to this new location and then move in different houses, whatever. She did not have a plan beyond that day when she attracted Doc to come to her house and she did the deed for which she is now found guilty. That day was going to end. He was going to be taken out, which she did. She was going to have full custody of the child and she was going to go live her life. She was going to take matter into her own hands. If the courts are not helping me to not have to share custody of my child with him, I'm going to take matter into my own hands. She had the plan of finishing him off, which she did. Did you see how she changed from that emotion of, I don't know, I would have never said that in front of him, I was afraid, to the judge interferes and already she forgets about what the emotion was. We don't come out and forget the emotion that we just had. We come out slowly. We still have dealings with the previous emotion before we go to the next one. We don't change like robots. We're not robots, the way that she's portraying herself. To be a general, one-dimensional character. Even in acting, we don't believe that. I would have put a stop to it if an actor was portraying her as a character, let's say, if there is a movie to be done. I would say that's not believable. If you do this testimony in the way that you are doing it, which is completely not humane, not the way that we specifically behave as human beings, it's not going to be believed. You're going to be found guilty. And I knew she was going to be found guilty. Many people are not believing because they know all these details in human behavior. That's why. So if the injunction were granted on that day, what was your plan about moving to Maryland with Doug?
I don't know that I really had a plan. I wasn't even sure whether or not I was going to go through the injunction at that point.
She goes back after having the sidebar and then they all come back. The prosecutor is allowed to ask the question again. So she does. By saying that she didn't have a plan, that automatically tells us that she had a plan to finish him off. She knows that's going to sound really bad to the jurors. She's going to have to put on the face and go for the emotion, which is not even there, forcing her face, creases on her forehead, raising her eyebrows, trying to make herself cry. This is what we do when we try to fake crying. Fake crying versus real crying. Real crying does not give us the time to think, let me cry. Real crying comes from her so-called horrible life with her husband. She wouldn't have to push her muscles of the face in different positions to make herself cry. Real crying comes from somewhere inside your deepest of your soul. You don't have to think about, I'm going to make myself cry. It happens instinctively. It happens surprisingly to you. You don't even know when it's going to come up. It comes up. It surprises you. Okay, so I want to get to the night
that all this happened. So you knew Doug was coming over.
Yes.
You invited him over
Yes.
to help you move stuff in the house,
Well, specifically stuff in the garage, but yes.
stuff in the garage to the truck.
Hmm.
And he came to your house a couple of times. He came and then left and then came back again.
Yeah, I believe he came twice that day.
And there is a gate to your community.
Hmm.
And when he's at the gate, you had to let him in.
Sometimes, because he was frequent in and out, sometimes the gate remembers license plates and sometimes it opens and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes he would just follow people in. The gate kind of stays open for a while. But yeah, sorry.
But on this day, you weren't concerned about him coming over.
No, I knew he was coming.
And when he came over,
She remembers the things that were supposed to be moved out of the house when the prosecutor is asking her. She remembers details about, well, not really, not from the house, from the garage. So she remembers all these details that have nothing to do with the whole horrible thing that happened. She remembers that the gate did not have to be opened by her to let Doug come in. She remembers all these things which she thinks are in her favor, to say, well, he could have come in even if I didn't open the door without saying it, to say that she was not letting him in all the time. He was able to come in without her approving or opening the gate. She remembers all these things, but when it gets to the most horrific, in her opinion, fearful moments of her life, she doesn't remember, as you will see.
your mother and Emerson went to the park.
I believe they were headed there. I'm not sure. I think they were down the driveway or on the sidewalk, something like that. They were on their way there.
You weren't so afraid that you wanted your mother to stay there and watch.
No, we were just packing to move.
Okay, so you weren't afraid.
I definitely didn't expect this to happen.
Do you see how she goes to that emotion again? Because she knows that she's being caught with lies. If you are so afraid of somebody the way that she wants us all to believe that she was afraid for her life, then why would you have your mother and your daughter leave the house, allowing the abuser, the so-called abuser, come into the house without fear? Would you not have said, let's just meet outside? Meet outside. You don't have to come in the house. Nothing is in the house. I've taken all the boxes outside of the house. They're all in the garage. And you would have your mom and your daughter stay on the driveway. Don't go to the park, mom. If I'm dealing with somebody that I'm afraid of, if he sees that the little daughter is going to be there with her mom, he might not behave as abusive. No, she's not afraid because she thought, she goes to the tears again. Whenever she's being caught lying by the prosecution, she goes to the same general emotion. She doesn't do any other emotion that a human being would have. Like I said, every emotion that is real is going to be different depending on the question. To different questions, you have different emotions. For her, it doesn't matter what the questions are. It's only when she realizes that she's being caught in lies, she goes to the same general emotion because she thinks that that is going to fool the jurors, as many bad actors do think also that they are going to fool the audience. They don't know the audience and the jurors are smarter than that. They can feel or not feel the truth. Detailed way of being able to do so. How amazing is our human brain to be able to feel for somebody or not feel for somebody.
Your mother left.
Yeah, at that time.
Okay. So if I heard you right during your direct, you said he bumped your shoulder twice. Body check. I don't know if that's what you called it. He walked into you with a box, right?
Yes.
And then at the end, you say he slapped you.
He hit me. I don't. I wouldn't know how to classify it. He struck me. He hit me.
Was his hand open or closed?
I don't remember.
Okay.
The terms being used by her, Ashley, and her defense were presented before. They have the same terms which they have rehearsed. One of them is body checked. Why would you use body checked? What the hell does that mean? I don't even know what the term is. They're so precise to be using the same terms. They had to come up with something they were going to put into the jurors' brains to make it believe that he was already getting aggressive. Then that wasn't enough. That he body checked her, slammed into her. I guess that's what he means. He was carrying a box, asked by her to go there and help her move, bumped into her with a box, and she had a scratch on the side from the box. Just think about it. Get up and do that. If you put that in practice, if that's the aggression somebody's going to think to put on you, they're going to take a box and they're going to slam with the box into your side. The defense and her have nothing else to say about how this escalated, how this very normal, come over to my house, text messages, bring boxes, go and buy some boxes, bring them over. We're going to put everything in the truck and we're all going to move and we're going to work on our family. If that was the real plan, why would he take a box and slam into her body and scratch her with a box? The scratches, by the way, are going to look like these little cat scratches. They're not consistent with somebody scratching you with a freaking box. Was the box empty? Was the box full? I don't even know. Again, general explanation from her and her defense attorney. The prosecutor is so smart. You'll see what she does at the end.
And because of those things, you claim that you thought he was going to kill you.
He had never hit me before.
Okay. And you thought he was going to kill you.
He wouldn't let me leave. I tried to leave. He stopped me.
The question is, you thought he was going to kill you.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you were in the bedroom, you decided to get your firearm. And it was where?
It was in a storage bin on top of the laundry basket.
Do you see how she forgot again to keep crying? There's so much tension in the face that she is pushing for. She wants those tears to come out of her eyes and they're not coming out of her eyes. She is so upset that she's not able to cry in the way that she planned. She anticipated to get on the stand and to cry. I'm sure they had rehearsal with, this is my opinion again, with her defense attorney, trying to do that, and it's not working. When you try so hard, when you are using your muscle of the face with so much tension, you're pushing them in different positions, the crying is not happening. The crying happens when the facial muscles are completely relaxed. Tears will never come this way. That's why they never will come with her. Never. If she wanted to do her act, she should have hired an acting coach. In my opinion, she could have gotten better results. She would have been able to fool maybe a lot more jurors than she did. But she didn't even know that because she is so arrogant and she thinks that she can act brilliantly without the help of anybody. I don't know if she had an acting coach. I'm just speaking my opinion. I don't know. She is so arrogant to think that she's going to fool the jurors. As soon as another question was asked, what does she do? She goes back. He's never hit me before. I'm exaggerating, but that's pretty much what she's doing.
So I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 52. If you could turn around and look at that. Where was your firearm?
It was in the bin on top of the basket.
Here.
That's the basket.
Where's the pushing to cry? You just stopped? Did you just stop? Because now it's coming to something that has to be revealed by you again, which is going to give you away. The house is emptied of almost anything. Everything is being put in the garage or in the truck for the move. But you have a gun that you're still keeping in the house, ready in any case, just to have it there. Really? Really? When Doug came to the house with flip-flops, he did not have an arm with him. He had nothing. He was not coming there to provoke or to do any damage. He was coming there thinking, even making jokes during the text by saying, the trucker is on the way. The trucker is on the way. Laugh out loud. Ha, ha, ha. He did not come prepared to have his life taken that day. And she had it planned, in my opinion. The verdict, guilty of manslaughter, I don't think it means that she planned it with a depraved heart, but she still did not fool the jurors. She was found guilty of manslaughter. The worst one would have been found guilty of second-degree murder, which she was not. Probably the jurors were not able to come together unanimously and give her the worst, so they went with the second one. I think she really believed that she was going to get not guilty. I really do, because she had planned this for so many years. She thought that she was so brilliant, that she was going to fool people. People are so much smarter than that.
Where was the bin?
It's that right on top.
Okay, so it was in here.
Yes, ma'am.
Why would you have a firearm in there?
I had just emptied all the furniture and everything out of my room, and it was kind of like what was left from my drawers, and so it got put into a bin.
Okay, and that was not your only firearm in that room, correct?
Correct.
You had a firearm in the closet.
My carry gun was in my backpack, which was my purse at the time.
So in this room with a mattress and a broom and a hamper, you had 2 firearms.
Yes.
So you go into the room and you grab your firearm. Is it in a holster?
I don't remember.
Okay. And you claim that Doug does what?
He came and slammed the door open. He was standing in the doorway. He said, "You're fucking done."
He said, "You're fucking done." And that made you fear for your life.
Yeah.
Can we turn the lights up, please? Thank you.
He said, "You're fucking done." If you look at all the text messages between the two of them for a long period of time before he comes to the house, you will notice there's not the way that Doug would talk. She came up with this for the jurors, that they know that she had to stand her ground and she had no choice but to do what she did. There's no way that that's the way Doug talked. There was no phrase, all of the communication the prosecution was able to show between the two of them, that he would use such a term, no matter how much she thinks they were believing her. She doesn't know what the questions are going to be. And when it's something that she knows she's going to lie about a little bit more than the other, she's going to have to tell a bigger lie. Where was the gun? Was it in a holster? She gets surprised by it. You can see how she forgets to have emotions, or she forgets to tense up her face, caught by surprise by the prosecution. And then she's like, oh, then I have to go back to tensing my face again and pretend that I'm crying. I'm sorry. This has nothing to do, like I said, with anybody who is saying the same story and is actually not telling the lie about it. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with my interpretation from an acting perspective of the credibility, not credibility of this witness.
So he says you're fucking done and you point the gun and you shoot.
I held it out in front of me first so he could see it. And I said, "Stop."
Judge, if I could have her step down so she can demonstrate.
This is the most brilliant part of the whole cross, I believe. I think that it takes boldness and courage and bravery on the part of the prosecution to actually get up somebody from the stand who allegedly is, she says, a victim. That's a risky choice to make for the prosecution, because it could turn against her. Depending on how the jurors believe her up to here, I don't think the prosecution knows at this time if the jurors are believing, or maybe she can tell because she sees their face in the way that they react to this whole cross-examination. But it could be a risky choice. And as actors, we got to take risks sometimes, even if we think those choices that we're making are bold and they might not work. The taking of the risk is worth it. You might discover something that will completely change the whole path, be felt by the audience or not. And I think the prosecution does just that. Ashley started to demonstrate in the beginning when she puts her arm out, when she's being asked exactly what happened that specific night after she went in the other room to retrieve the gun. What was the gun doing there? And then she had another gun in a closet. Why would you have 2 arms in the house when you're moving? So she kind of put herself in the demonstration because she started to put her arm out to demonstrate. But then when the prosecution said, calm down, if nothing gave her away up to here, or maybe there were smaller inclinations that she's lying, this is what gives her away. If you see the pictures in the way that she was dressed before the trial began, if you look at her expensive clothes that she was wearing, if you look at the way that she was walking, and she was looking confident, she was looking arrogant. Even if you look at some of the moments in her interaction with her defense attorneys, she's very demanding in passing notes to them. She forgets to be weak. And then after she does all those things, it's almost like she puts a different public persona which is this, to show the weakness, the fear. Let me show the fear, general fear throughout. But she forgets to do it all the time when she lets go of this public persona that she wants us to believe it's her real self, which is not. And then she thinks, oh my God, cameras. I forget there's cameras. There's still people watching. There's still jurors. Let me go to my persona that I want them to believe I am. Doesn't work like that. You cannot cheat the audience. You cannot cheat the jurors.
So Doug opens the door and does what?
He said, you're fucking done. And I hope it got out in front of me and just stop. He got into this like fighting fight, literally like turned sideways. And he was like moving around with his like arms in his hands. And he started like inching forward towards me.
So he why do you call it a fighting stance?
It was like a fighter. Like I don't know, like a ninja or something, I don't know.
Okay, so he's standing there, he turns to like this and starts moving his arms around. Well, show me, what was he doing?
And like I really got like this, and he was like making like fighting motions. I don't know, I'm not a fighter, I don't know.
Okay,
It was scary.
did he have his hands in fists?
Not at that point, they were like, I don't know.
Was he coming at you like this?
When he lunged at me very quickly.
Okay, so he lunged, was his fist up when he lunged? So you start shooting, and he does what?
He kept coming at me.
Okay, so then you keep shooting again. And he falls down on his back.
His legs went up in the air.
Okay, where do his legs go?
In the air.
How high in the air?
I don't know.
Do they go over his head?
I don't think like his feet slipped out.
Okay.
And his feet and his legs went up in the air.
And were you still shooting at the time?
I don't remember.
You can have a seat.
All these members are the members of the family of Mr. Doug Benefield, the deceased. It's so sad to see them. Oh, God. You saw when she came down, she was dressed in a very simple way. If you would have seen the pictures of her before, somebody must have told her, you got to start dressing simpler. You got to show weakness. You got to show fear throughout the whole trial. She was like a different person. That was the real Ashley Benefield. By the way, she kept the last name of the so-called abuser. She kept it. She kept it. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? If your life with him was so horrible and you were going through such turmoil and abuse, physical abuse, but that doesn't happen all the time. He only hit her for the first time now. And how did he hit you? The prosecution says, how? Show me. How did he come to you? Did he come to you like this? Did he come to you like this? What did he do? He was in a fighter stance. So through her fake crying, she remembers another term that's being used over and over again by her and her defense attorney. He was having this fighter stance where he was moving his hands around. That's even in the opening statement of her defense attorney. He came at her and he was moving his hands like this because they had to say that he provoked her instead of the reality, which I believe is she pointed a gun. He turned around because he did not see it coming, the poor man, trying to get away from her. While he was coming, he was lunging towards me. How did he make a fist? How did he hit you? I don't know how he hit me. That was the first time that you were being hit. You were being hit with a closed fist, slapped. Which way were you hit? Did he come to you like this? How? I don't know. He was like this. He was like this. He was just flapping his hands around like a bird. What was he doing? Yeah, he was in a fighter stance. But show me how. I don't know how a fighter, but you know how to say fighter stance? That makes absolutely no sense. It is so rehearsed and it is so badly done. It is unbelievable. She realizes the demonstration did not work in her favor because I think she's smart enough to know that. So when she goes back to the stand, you saw the whole time she was going to that facial expression with the tension in the muscles. There were, again, no tears. There was nothing that was happening organically or differently than what had happened for the entire testimony. When she turns around to go back to sitting down, she realizes her subtext is probably, oh my goodness, that was so bad. I could not do what I wanted to do, which was to real cry. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to continue with this fake nervous breakdown. So she continues with making the same sounds, which are coming from nowhere truthful inside of her, but an imitation of emotions. And she makes them even bigger. You will see. She goes with the do you feel anything when I'm doing that? No, you don't, because I don't even feel it. It's facade, it's on the exterior. It doesn't have any kind of link to what I'm feeling. It doesn't come from my honest place because I know I'm not telling the truth. She wants to try to repair what she was not able to do in the demonstration. So she does it when she goes back.
So after this incident, you claim that you had swelling to your face, right?
I know this sounds really crazy, but I'm telling you, this is like an acting exercise. If you try to make those sounds, where do they come from? Just try making them. They do not come from somewhere sincere. She's stopping. She's not answering the next question because the next question is, you claim that you had swelling on your face. If somebody punches you, if somebody hits you the same way that she said that she was hit by this supposedly fighter who was in a fighter stance, doesn't even know if the fist punched her, if the slapped her. She's asking the next question, was there swelling on the face? She doesn't want to answer it because none of the pictures that were produced entered into evidence show any kind of swelling from a punch or a slap. None of them do. There's nothing there. So she's going with, let me still continue with the so-called nervous breakdown. Let me make these new additional sounds that, again, are completely superficial, have nothing to do with what I'm saying and what happened to me. And maybe I will be believed because my demonstration while standing was really bad. I think she knows that.
All right, members of the jury, please close up your notes, put them on your chairs. I'm going to ask you to step out for a minute. You can use the facility. It's not quite our mid-afternoon break, but we'll treat it as such. Please don't discuss it amongst yourselves. Don't discuss it with anybody outside the jury. Don't do any research like we've talked about.
What does she do? She gets a break. She gets the judge who, what is he going to do? I'm sure he knows this is all fake, but he's got to say, let's take a break because she has nothing else to stand on. There's no truth other than, let me have a break. If the judge is going to grant me a break, then maybe the jurors will believe, they will think that the judge is believing her. So let me not answer the next question. I'll have a break. I'll create this dramatic event. I'm smart enough. I'm a ballerina, ex-ballerina, actress, whatever she considers herself to be. I don't know. And I'll be able to pull this off. Well, she hasn't pulled that off. And then you'll see her the way that she walks back to her defense table where she's sitting. You will see the whole act being played out.
The jury's out. You can have a seat.
She's apologizing as if to say, I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. She gets up and the jurors were leaving. So she goes back to being polite. I'm going to be polite because that's what I am, a polite, simple person who was really taken advantage of. And I had no other way but to stand and do what I did. I had to protect myself. And then she goes down and then she says, I'm sorry. Let me use the word, let me use this phrase, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to have this nervous breakdown. It just happened because she knows it did not happen. If a nervous breakdown happens and is real, you don't apologize for it because your brain doesn't have the time to go, let me apologize for this nervous breakdown. You are so into it. It takes all of your being. Your whole brain is occupied because there's so many things being triggered. You don't have time to apologize in the moment. You don't have the clarity to say, I am so sorry when it happens. She's covering her face. Why is she covering her face? Because there's nothing real happening on her face.
It will take 5 minutes.
You have time to really fix your hair. If you're wiping your tears away and you're trying to cover your face and you're trying to recover from this so-called nervous breakdown, do you have time to go like this with the hair, really? Do you think that would really happen? You would be concerned about your hair. You know what happens after this, everybody? It's so crazy. But what happens after this when she's being found guilty only after 6 or 7 hours of deliberation? She changes everything. When she's found guilty of manslaughter, she does not have this posture anymore. She stands straight. There's no emotion on her face. Everything is completely gone. And then you can start to see the real person. I hope that this is informative. I hope you guys like this. Please let me know what you think in your comments. I don't know if you find this as interesting as my other episodes that I've done on the other people, trying to figure out people as if they were characters from an acting perspective. And I just wanted to say, I'm sorry because there's no good outcome for any of this. There are two daughters, the older daughter from a previous marriage of Mr. Doug Benefield, who's left without a father. She was also left without a mother. The mother previously died from natural causes. And now there is her daughter, because she was found guilty of manslaughter again, who's left without a father that she shot. And without her, she's going to spend time in jail. So was this worth anything? I don't understand how people think that they can do all these things and get away with it. I mean, what arrogance? How dare do you go so far as to create your own scenario and to take someone's life and then to come up with all these plans in advance? This is what I'm going to do, and my life is going to be so much easier because I want to have custody of my daughter. Why could you not do other things to make this work and not have to hurt anybody, not have to hurt your daughter, especially now that she's left with your mom who's going to raise her? You took a man's life, you took a father, you took a brother from the family. I hope nobody's going to jump on this to say, oh, but you don't understand. Yes, I do understand. I do understand domestic violence. I've been in a domestic violent relationship. I don't want to go into it. So do not tell me that I don't understand. I do. But that's not what I'm doing here. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about trying to analyze people, as acting is about analyzing and knowing how to portray characters, making them so specific that they resemble human beings. So there's a analysis of human condition, of human behavior, psychology. Then we transform it into behavior. We try to recognize what works, what doesn't work, what's real, what doesn't sound real. That's what we do as acting teachers, not from any other perspective, but just that. Thank you so much. I love being back. Please let me know what you think, as I've asked you. This was just so on my mind because so many people disagreed with me when I made these comments while watching her testify, especially on the cross-examination, because she's not truthful. And so many other people jumped on me and said, how dare, you don't understand what she's going through. How can you say that she's not believable when you don't know her behavior? Well, that's how I know. All of the things that I pointed out to were not believable, were not detailed, were not specific in the way that human beings would portray if they were telling truthful stories. Thank you. Mwah, mwah, mwah.